Hello and welcome to SYSTRAcast, the podcast from SYSTRA talking all things transport, infrastructure and more. I'm your host Gemma, and today I'm joined by my colleague Gareth Davies, who is our Market Director for Water and the Environment. Hi Gareth.
Good afternoon, Gemma.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your career so far?
I will indeed. So I'm a chartered quantity surveyor by professional, a fellow of the Institute, and my background is predominantly within the water sector, both on client side and on the contractor side. Work for regulated authorities such as Welsh Water, Thames, South West, and many of the contracting organisations operate on the other side of that fence.
And what was it about the water industry that first drew you in? It's one of those sectors where we all use water, we all flush our toilets and so on, but you don't necessarily think about it as an exciting sector to work in. What brought you into it?
Yeah, and I think I probably fell into the water sector not by chance. It was so I went into Wessex Water on the construction side, building new assets and refurbishing assets. And what you find is the water sector touches many facets of what you do within the construction phases: feasibility, outline design, detail design. And you're right, everything we do impacts on one, the environment we're operating in, or secondly, how we serve the customers that use either the clean water or wastewater services.
So SYSTRA will be known to many of our watchers and listeners, and of course to many of our clients for the work we do in transport, in mobility and that area. Tell us a little bit about SYSTRA's work in the UK and Ireland across the water and environment markets.
Okay, so you are correct. SYSTRA are very, very well known in the linear infrastructure space. And from my point of view, it's very much how those transferable skills translate into the water sector. AMP8, massive investment program, and for us as SYSTRA, we've got some great relationships forming with utility companies such as Yorkshire Water, United Utilities, and construction firms such as Sapphire Utility Solutions. And for us, it's all about taking the excellent disciplines, resources, expertise we've got and translating that across into the water sector.
So let's drill down a little bit more then into why it's so important for the water industry to be undertaking so much investment at the moment, why it matters and why SYSTRA's getting so much more involved in that. You mentioned AMP8 there. Explain that to our listeners and viewers who may not know what that is.
Okay, so the asset maintenance period, or the AMP, is AMP8, runs from 2025 to 2030. It's the largest ever investment program, circa 75% increase from AMP7. The numbers, £104 billion of investment. Now that's a TOTEX investment. That's for keeping the lights on within the businesses. But fundamentally, AMP8 is a step change. There's so much regulatory focus, external pressure, political pressure on these water companies. And fundamentally, the UK has got an aging asset base, which unfortunately, even with that level of investment, won't keep up. For SYSTRA, it's an adjacent market, but it's very much a market whereby we've got transferable skills. SYSTRA are renowned for linear infra schemes, putting a railway from A to B, and what we're looking at is fundamentally whether it's a railway, a water main, a pipeline. For us, it's the same. It's all about the consenting, environmental, the outline design and feasibility study. So again, it's all about taking transferable skills and bringing new resource into the water market. We're not operating in the sector to the extent that we'd like to this point in time, and we know going forward there's going to be a skills shortage within the water sector.
Tell us a little bit more then about where all of this investment through the AMP8 programme is going. What is SYSTRA already getting involved in? What are we already delivering for our clients?
Okay, so this AMP, the main focuses are probably the environmental space. It's all about spills, flooding, flood risk, and from a SYSTRA point of view, we're heavily involved in that space now. We've got an excellent environmental team looking at the flood risk, and then we're looking at activities such as combined sewer overflows, which in effect, on a storm event, to stop water being raising up into people's houses and business properties, is taken to, in essence, an outfall that goes into water courses. This activity has also had a lot of press, a lot of political pressure, causing pollution to waterways. And so SYSTRA are heavily involved in a program whereby we're increasing the capacity of what the storm overflows can take, but much wider than that. And this is where we bring our external experience in. It's looking at a catchment approach. Instead of looking at just the outfall, it's looking at where is the surface water coming from. Can you put in more environmentally friendly solutions to achieve the same consent? Instead of building a large concrete tank, we're building swales, we're building, in effect, green spaces that will accommodate this additional flow without, in effect, affecting the water courses.
You touched on there the media interest, political interest. I know from my previous time working at a water company that customers are so much more involved and engaged with the industry, how their money's being spent and the services that the water companies deliver. Why do you think we are seeing this much higher level of interest and awareness in the water and wastewater industries?
I think it's probably twofold. The cost of living increases that we've all seen over the last few years has meant that everyone's more focused on where their money's going. The availability of data and information. We all know how much our water bill is, and water companies will break down where that expenditure goes. But also, Ofwat have put in some pretty significant step changes in how water companies will report. So if you take many of the water companies, they'll have interactive live maps, which will in effect will track if there's a potential spill. It'll tell them, actually, you can't go swimming at that beach now because we've just, unfortunately, pumped sewage straight out. So I think from our point of view, and for water companies, we're sort of masters of our own destiny now to a certain extent. We know where the issues are. We know how we need to address it. And I think the biggest issue they've got is probably the prioritization of risk. And that's where hopefully SYSTRA can come in, bring that value for money lens, making sure that we've prioritized the activity that we're being approached to do, and in effect, making sure that every pound spent is best placed.
And there's some real opportunities for innovative thinking and new ideas in that as well. The industry as a whole is very open, I think, to looking at new ways to solve some of these problems. What does SYSTRA bring to the table in that regard? We are, outside slightly of the water industry. We're growing in that space. So are we bringing a different view, different skills and ideas in?
Yes, I believe we are, and I believe we can even go further. Obviously, the resource we're bringing into the water sector have predominantly been involved within the transportation sector, particularly rail. But within the works that we've done, it's all about the consenting, the environmental piece. But fundamentally, what SYSTRA do extremely well is the systems engineering approach. It's making sure that from inception to hand over an asset, we know exactly what we're obliged to complete, what the activity and what the outcome is, and obviously manage that in a very, very process-driven way. SYSTRA are also at the forefront of how we digitally manage and how we use AI. And I think, again, it's probably the learning from external to the water sector that we can bring in. And you are right, water companies are crying out for new members to come into the water sector, bring new ideas, and in effect, like I touched on earlier, make sure that every pound that they're spending is spent in the right way and as efficiently as they possibly can.
So wastewater, environmental impact, significant challenge, a lot of investment going in. The other part of the story is the water side, the supplies, the sustainable use of water resources, which are limited. So what kind of challenges are being faced there by the industry?
So within the water sector, Ofwat have sort of set up a program called RAPID, which is the Regulatory Alliance, and in effect there's circa 28 named schemes of strategic importance to the UK. There will be a significant shortfall in water availability, and the forecast for 2050 is thousands of megalitres of shortage per day. These large schemes, the SRO schemes, strategic resource options, they're looking at, in effect, every possible way of either reducing the amount of water that we're losing, or in effect transferring water from areas whereby, I'd say surplus is probably the wrong word, but there's sufficient water for the supply into areas where there's not. And the southwest and the southeast in particular are areas whereby there is definitely a shortage of water. And again, going back to how SYSTRA can bring expertise into that arena, it's very much linear infra schemes. It's putting a pipeline, thousands of kilometres across the whole of the UK, new service reservoirs, desalination plants, etc. So SYSTRA are well placed with the large capital infra schemes that we've managed to step into that space.
And that is really a significant challenge, isn't it? In 2025, we've seen areas of drought right throughout the country. We've seen hosepipe bans in some areas as well. And that's not going to go away, isn't it? In fact, it's probably going to get worse.
Correct. The population growth is obviously driving use. And I think this is where Ofwat and the government and the regulatory sector sort of stepped in. They're not just focusing on how we, in effect, restrict the loss of water, but it's also sort of imposing how water is used as well. The recycling of water, and again, the strategic resource options look at all of those facets of how you make best use of a really quite scarce resource that we're going. And again, the billions of pounds that have been invested, there's a massive opportunity for SYSTRA to bring some really good lessons learned in supporting those programs of work.
So the slightly wider part of your role, Gareth, covers all things environment, really, and we do a lot of work in that space. We've got great ecology, landscape, environmental services teams doing all sorts of fantastic work. So coming back to SYSTRA's kind of core and our heritage in transport, and as you've talked about, a lot of that is around linear infrastructure, quite heavy engineering, a lot of impact, literally, physically, in the ground. So how do we sort of mitigate those impacts of transport and infrastructure projects, and where are we taking the sustainability of the projects that we deliver for our clients?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think fundamentally, the way SYSTRA operate is we do have a very good environmental background, very good in ensuring that the assets we build have the least impact as possible on the environment in which we work. And fundamentally, it's all about the stewardship. It's understanding as a business operating in this space, large amounts of capital investment. It's not just delivering an asset that delivers what we need to now. It's delivering for the future as well. It's making sure that areas we're in, wherever we're building, maximises the green spaces. And in particular, again, going back to the SRO schemes, yes, we are going to be putting pipelines in. We are going to be taking water from existing watercourses. But in doing so, is making sure that what we do, one, doesn't impact the nature which we're going into, but secondly, builds environmental spaces which, from a social point of view, people can go and actually enjoy. There's very much a view that there's a NIMBYism within. We don't want to in our backyard, and that's where we have to step in as a competent designer, a consultancy, and saying actually we are going to have to put this asset here, but the impact will be minimal. We'll make sure that when we've finished, if anything, it's all about improving the society in which we actually build.
That's what I was going to pick up on. We have to do that as a society, and we have to accept that, don't we? And we have to work with communities to showcase and support them through, yes, there may be some short-term challenges or difficulties, but the long-term gain and the importance of embedding sustainable practices, thinking about kind of consents, environmental management right before a project has even started is so important.
It is, and I think you've got considerations such as the embedded carbon. It's not just carbon for when you're building the asset; it's the carbon for actually operating the asset when we've actually finished. And to me, I've touched on everything we're doing. We are stewardship. We're stewards for the large areas of the countryside that we build through, the towns and cities that we actually affect. And yes, unfortunately, we are going to impact people. We are going to impact their daily lives, transporting themselves to and from work, noise, pollution, etc. But again, SYSTRA has got great experience, not just in making sure the asset does what it needs to, but also the community engagement as well, that the comms, making sure that people are aware when we're going to be doing stuff in their area, how long will it take, but also really explaining the benefits from what we are doing as well. Fundamentally, the CSO program, the main driver is we'll ensure there will be no spills either coming up into your house or in the watercourses that you and your family wish to enjoy.
So there's clearly so much going on across the water and wastewater sectors, Gareth. How do you feel about the next few years and the opportunities ahead?
I think personally, it's very exciting time, coming into SYSTRA. The direction is, let's take the excellent experience we built up outside of the water sector, the disciplines that we've got, the transferable skills, take that across the water sector, and to me that opens up nearly every door. We're focusing on the environmental piece, CSOs, flood risk alleviation schemes, and then wider than that, the large-scale infra schemes which SYSTRA have got a great history in delivering. So to me, any possible construction activity I can think of, SYSTRA have the opportunity to actually be involved with and also drive forward as well.
And what would you say to anybody considering a career in water, in infrastructure, in engineering, in the environment? How do you kind of encourage people to come and join us?
It is a really good question, and based on the £104 billion in this AMP, next AMP will be larger again. Outside of that, the strategic resource schemes, another £50-60 billion. So to me, we know we're going to have a resource gap. And I think if I was going to the new generation of graduates or people leaving school, it's that the opportunity are massive, and it's not constrained. When you think of water, you're thinking of clean water, turn the tap on, is water, wastewater, you flush your toilet and your waste goes. But it's everything that goes on behind that as well. It's consideration of dealing with the local community from a stakeholder point of view. It's the outline design, feasibility studies, environmental, consenting, planning approval. I can't think of many roles and many jobs in the UK that aren't necessarily involved in what SYSTRA are going to be involved in.
And if we could finish up then with a particular highlight from your career so far, one thing that you really sort of stand up and say, I was super proud to be involved in that, what would it be?
Good question. I've been involved in some quite significant infrastructure schemes. I was involved in the new accommodation project in Cheltenham, which is the GCHQ, the National Listening Post. From a water point of view, heavily involved in one of the first enhanced digestion schemes in the UK that was built by Wessex Water. And again, that touched on lots of different facets. It was all about, in effect, maximising the heat recovery from waste.
Fantastic. It's been great to have you on the podcast today, Gareth. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to you all for joining us today. Don't forget, you can stay in touch with SYSTRA. We're on social media. Just search SYSTRA UK and Ireland. Of course, we have our websites as well, and you can sign up to receive our regular newsletter there also. See you soon.